Welcome to the Well Woman Show, where we interview women executives, leaders, and entrepreneurs.
And you're listening to the Well Woman Show,
where motivated women achieve fulfillment and well-being.
You're listening to the Well Woman Show.
Take time for myself by coming to things like Well Woman Drinks.
To be accepting of myself no matter what. Step away from judgment as much as possible.
You're listening to the Well Woman Show.
You're going to be in for a good ride. I don't regret anything. Everything I've ever done, I've learned from it, one way or another, good or bad.
Being a little bit selfish for yourself, put your own oxygen mask on first and then give what's left.
I'm a woman. I would prefer to tell my own story. My story, though it's very personal, is universal.
You're listening to the Well Woman Show. And now your host, Giovanna Rossi.
Hi, Giovanna Rossi here, and welcome to another episode of the Well Woman Show, where I interview women leaders, executives, and entrepreneurs about their lives and their road to becoming and being who they are today. Are you feeling burned out or finding it hard to focus on your goals? Or are you in transition? Well, you're not alone. We all need to activate our superpowers. These are the internal strengths and abilities we all already have but don't use all the time. Superpowers can be cultivated, and they include empathy, love, intuition, courage, and more. As always, this episode is brought to you by Well Woman Life, a global community of women living our best lives. Whether it's your health, relationships, your money, or making an impact in your community and the world, Well Woman Life has you covered. You've made a commitment to not settle, to use your voice, and to live your best life. Well Woman Life offers annual memberships, workshops, and retreats to support you. Check out wellwomanlife.com/Facebook to join our growing community. Now back to the show. I'm speaking with Candice Thomas this morning. Welcome to the program.
Hi, glad to be here.
I'm so excited to have you on the show, and I want to introduce you to our guests. We're speaking with Candice Thomas this morning. Candice is an intuitive, she'll also give us a little bit more of a description, but basically she gives entrepreneurs and professional creatives the intuitive clarity and results-based strategy that they need to manifest success that they desire. And she's got an interesting background as a former federal government employee, an accountant at that. And she has gone in the direction of coaching, and we'll get into sort of what she does and what psychic mediumship is and all of that on the show today. I'm so excited to have you, Candice.
I'm so excited to be here. I can't wait.
All right, well, let's get started. I want to ask you, first of all, what are you working on right now, and how does it impact women's lives and well-being?
Well, right now I'm doing a lot of one-on-one work with my clients, and I'm also creating new retreats. And the retreats that I will be doing are helping people understand their intuitive gifts, because I believe everyone is intuitive. And the whole purpose, and it might be jumping ahead a little bit, but the purpose of intuition, people think, is to predict the future, when I have learned that when we use our intuitive power, we actually tune into a source that wants us to succeed. We tune into greater reservoirs of resources and information. And so my clients tend to manifest miracles in a very short, it looks like miracles, but they tend to manifest great success in a shorter period of time. And so in my one-on-one work with clients, that's what I believe that all of my clients most of them are entrepreneurs. Some of them are professional creatives, meaning screenwriters and producers, things of that nature. But 100% of my clients, they feel called to do the work that they do. It's not a hobby. They would do it even if they weren't getting paid. There's something within them that's like, I have to do this, which I believe is a soul purpose. It's their reason for being here. And so from that place, involving the intuitive, which is being intuitive, is really just invoking the language of your soul and your spirit into your daily life. And then magical things happen because it's tuned into, and this might be a little woo-woo, but it tunes into this greater purpose of why we're even here. And so when we listen to the language of our soul, beautiful things open for us. And so how I feel the work that I do impacts the world is the women that I work with, when they're really in their intuitive power and really listening to the language of their soul, this magical thing happens where instead of trying to push as entrepreneurs push, push, push to get what you want, push for advertising, push for clients. When you really tap into your intuition, suddenly you are led, suddenly you are pulled, suddenly it is easier. I'm not saying that it's a cakewalk, because there's still challenges that come up, but it's so different. And my clients will describe it as, you know how they say fake it till you make it, and oh, you just got to love yourself more. They actually experience those things. They actually feel like they are more of their true selves, and everything just becomes easier, where there isn't this constant feeling like something's missing or they're not good enough. Like, that gets restored. And again, that's where brilliant things happen when they're in their full power.
Yes, I love that. So there's a lot in what you just said that I want to kind of dig into. And I want to start by just reflecting on the well woman life cycle that a lot of our listeners are familiar with. And there's a whole section of the well woman life cycle. It's basically divides our lives, our flow, into like 4 areas. And one area is really trying to tap into our intuition and our inner knowledge and our wisdom. Because what we tend to do as high achieving women and go-getters and type A personalities is we tend to go from burnout, which is one of the other stages. We try to go from burnout right into action. Like, let me hit it harder. Let me take some more action. And it's a very male or masculine dominant kind of thing that we've been taught, which is just to push harder, go faster, do it more, which is what you were talking about. And what we tend to do is we tend to skip over this whole other area, which is to just be with ourselves and tap into ourselves and find that inner knowledge. So I think it really aligns well with what you teach. And I would love today to actually walk people through sort of how, because a lot of people do our quiz, and you can find it at wellwomanlife.com/movement. And you can do a really quick quiz to find out where you are in the well woman life cycle. And a lot of you find yourselves in that phase where we talk a lot about intuition. And so today's show is going to give you some real insight and tools for developing that, I believe.
Yes, happy to do that.
Okay, good. And so that's just sort of setting the stage. And then I want to dig into some of the language that you use, because I think that there's a lot of confusion and misunderstanding about power, about soul purpose, and you even used the word woo-woo, which was interesting for you to use that, so I think that people have to kind of categorize things like, oh, well, that's that kind of thing, or
right.
This is to this kind of thing. And so I have a lot of listeners who are real kind of results, strategy people, writers and lawyers and designers, and this idea that there's a soul purpose is kind of like, maybe, not everybody, but it's a little too out there for some people. So how would you kind of bring those folks along and just kind of explain what you're talking about in a way that it can, like, everybody can grasp?
Right. And that's what you said that perfectly. What I would say, first of all, is if you don't resonate with what I'm saying, don't believe it. I don't want to convince anyone. That's not what I'm about, because I believe everybody has a right to their beliefs and how they view the world. But what I will say, and the majority of my clients are not in, and I love the word woo-woo. I love it so much. So I know some people can use it negatively, but I love it. And so sometimes you'll hear me also use people who don't view themselves to be intuitive or that spiritual. We sometimes call those folks muggles in a loving way. So it's so to translate for muggles, if person, and I find that people really aren't muggles, but they don't understand what they're doing is highly intuitive. I find that most people are very intuitive because all it is just being deeply in tune with the self. So things like a soul purpose, it goes back to most people who are entrepreneurs, they get into entrepreneurship because they really do feel called. Where does that calling come from? The idea of working for someone else or the idea of doing something you don't love or that you can't stand, it just gnaws away and makes you feel so sad, so depressed, so anxious, regardless of how much money you make. So why does that happen? Where does that come from? It's something inherently you. And what I find most of the women that I work with, they are often, people think that they're crazy. It's like, why can't you just be happy getting a 9 to 5? Why can't you just be happy? And it's working so far in their business that they're at a certain level of success and they're feeling like, but this isn't it. I want to switch. I want to do more. And people are like, what are you talking about? You should be so grateful. And yet there's this thing that indescribable, this knowing, this truth that they're not answering. So that's how I would first describe it to people who are like, what, huh? And to also, I find being intuitive is really not as interesting as it's portrayed on TV. Like it's not as, it isn't, right? So most of the way that psychic intuitive ability is portrayed is like dead people manifest in front of us. We know everything about the future. And then like dead people take us on wacky adventures and yada, yada. It's so unsexy how intuition really presents for people. And so it is just as simple as when you start to honor your truth, it's like that little voice pops up in your head sometimes and says, hey, we should do this. And depending on how trusting people are of the intuition, they will follow the little voice or they won't. And then things will blow up in their life. Or it's a feeling that they might have where they have a feeling of, I feel kind of weird about this. And if they follow that weird feeling, because I meet so many people who are like, no, I don't think I'm intuitive at all. Yet they will say things like, it just popped in my head. I needed to do this. And then bam, a miracle happened. Or I just had a weird feeling about this opportunity, didn't take it. And they find out it was a scam situation. So I would say to people who don't quite understand it, you're probably already doing it. You're just calling it something else. So you think you're really smart. It's like, and you, not that you aren't, because that was me. I'm claircognizant, which I'll explain, which means I just know things. I just know things. I don't know why I know them. And for a while, I just thought I was a genius and I'm not a genius. And I would say to people, it's just common sense. And people would say, what are you talking about? Like we couldn't see that at all. So it's things like that. Like I have a weird feeling and I get so kind of upset with people where I'm like, this isn't going to work. And they would go, why? And I was not able to verbalize because it was just a feeling I had. So it's things like that. And most entrepreneurs that I work with, they are following a truth, following a calling. So they usually are plugged and tuned in to using their intuition. They just aren't given the tools of how to understand it and how to really use it to manifest what they desire.
Okay. And then just quickly as an aside, and then we can get back to this, or maybe it's not an aside, but how do you view this in relation to religion or someone's spirituality? Like if they're like, well, I go to church, every Sunday, what do I need to do any of this for?
I have had, they just call it something else. So I've heard, for example, really religious Christians say to me, Jesus put it on my heart to do this. And that's how they describe it. Or the spirit called me to do this. I use the word spirit. I've even had atheists. It's very interesting. I consider them to be very intuitive, but what they will tell me is, well, I just feel like it's magical brain powers. So it's like deep within them, some knowing from an aspect of their brain. And to me, it doesn't matter. It's listen to it. Whatever you think it's the origination, if it resonates with you and it feels safe for you to do so, just trust it and listen to it because it will always lead you in the right direction.
Okay. I also want to ask you about the word power because I use the word power a lot and I've had discussions with people about the word power and how it can be a negative or it could be a positive. What is power for you?
Power is, how do I break this down? I literally view power as a source, like a battery. Like we have this innate power within us, and that's our soul power. So I believe that, and this is getting really woo-woo again, but not all of us, we are soul beings. And you'll hear people say, you know, we're not just humans and with the soul inside of our body. That's how people will view it. But we're actually, there are levels of power within us. So we have our innate power from our soul that is absolutely strong. It came here to succeed. It didn't come here to apologize. It doesn't care what people think. It's just all loving. It's all compassionate. It's divinely perfect. And people, there's this whole myth around power being bad. But what I'm finding is people, the reason why power turns bad is we don't trust our own inner power. We keep going to other people to get it. So I need to control you, and then I feel power from this control situation instead of feeling and acknowledging my own power within. And then deeper than that, I believe that we are right now, all of us, still connected to a greater power. So there's our own personal power and then a greater power. Now, what that greater power is, you know, a lot of people think it's God, spirit, source. The way I view it intuitively when I tap into it, it seems to be all that is. It's like everything. And it's so loving. It's not negative. It's all encompassing. It wants to help everyone. It wants everyone to have an easier time. And by tuning into our own power and acknowledging consciously our own power, we can tap into that divine brilliance and then move into this we're being led feeling. And then we don't feel the need to control people. We don't feel the need to lash out in pain because we feel divinely loved and supported. We don't feel misunderstood or misguided or left behind. So I think it's people being taught over and over to give up their power that is the problem. Like even in, I love Harry Potter, but like there was the magic wand and it was so powerful, no one can have it and they have to break it at the end. And I'm like, that's the problem. Like, don't tell kids power is bad, because that's the whole freaking problem to begin with, is then they can't accept their own power. Like I meet so many people, they can't even receive a compliment because, oh my God, I don't want people to think that I'm arrogant. I don't want people like, who do you think you are? Yeah. That is our inability to receive power, to own our power, to know our power. And then we start acting out in very harmful, passive aggressive ways and get ourselves into situations that don't honor who we really are.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Okay. That's a great explanation of power. Thank you. I want to get into the idea that you could walk us through kind of how to tap into your intuition, and you'll have a different way of describing it. But if you can actually walk listeners through like an exercise,
absolutely,
then we can get a little more tangible with this and actually sort of have people experience what you're talking about.
Yes. All right. And it's very, very easy. Intuition is so ridiculously simple. So what I can do is, and for anyone who's hopefully not watching if you're driving or something, but anyone who's listening, again, not if you're driving or not if you need to pay attention right now, I can walk you just through a brief breathing exercise, like a mini meditation, and we can do an exercise where we can start to tune in and you will receive some guidance, or you might not. Yeah. Or you might not, but that's okay. And I'll explain what that means in a second.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So for all of you listening and watching, you can either pause and do this later when you're in a safe place to do this, or pull over or, somehow be prepared to really get into this and not be in a dangerous place, driving or something, or on the treadmill. And I just want to point out, too, that the free giveaway this week is actually very much to do with what we're talking about. It's Candice's one-pager on intuition versus imagination. I love that because it is sort of like, am I imagining this? Or is this real? Like, what is this? And so her whole step-by-step guide here that you can get is how to strengthen your intuition. So with that, why don't you take us through it?
All right, perfect. So I just invite, if you are, thank you for saying that, but for those of you who are in a safe space and can do this, to sit in a comfortable position. And if possible, just take out anything that you're holding in your hands, just kind of get relaxed. And when you're ready, close your eyes, begin taking deep breaths into your body. With every breath you take, really become present with how you feel. noticing any tiredness, any tension, any stiffness, or any feelings of peace and relaxation in your physical body. Yes. And with the power of your breath, just imagine you're breathing in greater relaxation, greater peace wherever it needs to go, greater energy if you need it, wherever it needs to go in your physical body. Going deeper with this awareness into your emotions and just noticing what emotions are strongest for you right now. Understanding that there might be several emotions, that's okay. Or you might be feeling pretty clear, that's okay too. Just tuning into and trust your very first impression, what emotions are coming up the strongest. And then also, and this might seem odd, but just trust your very first impression. Where do those emotions seem to be in your physical body? Trust your very first impression. It might be a knowing, an image, a feeling. Where are your emotions right now? Returning to the power of your breath. And with every breath you take, you can clear any unpleasant emotions wherever they are in those aspects of your body. Keeping in mind, sometimes you sense emotions around you. Going deeper into your awareness now and really becoming present with your thoughts. And the idea is not to get your thoughts to stop. If you're hearing a lot of speaking or a lot of chatter, it's just to stay in the place of an observer, as if you're watching your thoughts come and go, as if someone else is talking. And right now, we just set a sacred intention to balance the mental energy with the emotional energy, with your physical energy right now. Just take another deep breath. Notice the physical shift and change in your body as you do this. And now we just go deeper. And just imagine that there's a light body inside of you. It's a body made out of light. And asking yourself, and don't overthink it, first impression, where do you perceive this light body to be right now? Do you feel it balanced within you? Does it seem off to the side, in front of you, behind you? We're just going to set the intention that your light, your power resets wherever it needs to reset right now. You don't have to think about it. It's all good. All aspects of you coming into harmony and alignment. Again, noticing the subtle shift and change in how you feel. And now we're just going to ask your spirit, your higher self, what is in your highest and best interest to let go of right now? First impression, don't overthink it. Just trust whatever came into awareness, which might have been an image, a thought. You might have had a remembering of something, a feeling, a knowing, a sense. And now ask, what's in your highest and best interest to receive right now? First impression. It might be very fleeting. It's all good. And lastly, we're just going to ask, what's the very next step I should take right now? And again, a knowing, a feeling, an image, a thought. Just trust what presents. So take a few deep breaths, and when you're ready, slowly and gently open your eyes. Okay, so How was that? Did you get any impressions? Did you see anything, feel anything, hear anything?
I did. It's always interesting. I love your walking people through with the light, because that's really tangible. It's something that you can see or imagine.
Mm-hmm.
I guess we're not imagining it. And so the 3 questions really helped walk me through a process. And I got to the last one, and then I think I got distracted and I got pulled out. But very interesting, very cool.
Right? And so this is where people go, depending on their religious beliefs, like, oh, that's just from my subconscious. That's fine. It's perfect. It's for me, it doesn't matter where people think the information is coming from. And you used a very important word, which is, imagination, like, oh, like it imagined. But imagination is not bad. And in fact, your spirit, in order to get messages to us, they will use everything, including our, I won't say imagination, but they're trying to, because your intuition can't really speak. It's just an energy. So they have to, your intuition, your soul and spirit has to communicate by giving information or a sense, an impression to your brain, and your brain has to translate it. So your brain, so that's why some people can hear, like they'll say things like, something told me to. Other people will see where they get the images. And the images, people always think it's with your eyes. And for some people, it's like that. They see with their eyes something in front of them. But other people, they might see an image in their mind's eye. And what they see might be a commercial, something that you saw before. It might be a movie scene. It could be anything, usually very, very brief. And then people go, it's my imagination. It's like, no, it's your intuition is trying to use, because we can be a little dense and we don't believe. And so your intuition is trying to use the least amount of energy possible to get us to understand something. So if we go, what do I let go of? And you see a scene from a movie, that's your intuition absolutely saying, it's like this. This is the best way I can describe it. If the more intuitive that you become and the more that you trust and open up, then your intuition can present in different ways where it can speak to you. And again, it's for most people, they hear it in their minds. And for those people who you do hear thoughts in your mind and they're confused sometimes about, well, which is like the intuitive voice versus there's the voice, sometimes they have this narrator that just always talks to you. And if you start listening, the intuitive voice usually is very short and to the point. It doesn't like wax on poetic. It's very short, very to the point. And it's no emotion. When it's your own voice, sometimes there's emotion around it, and intuition does not tend to be emotional. The more that you start being able to distinguish between the two voices, you will also start to notice that the tone or feeling of the voice that comes from your intuition actually does sound different than your inner narrator. But to get to the point where you can recognize it, you have to keep paying attention to it. So that's not like something where you just do it once and then you recognize you have to keep doing it. Yeah. So something else that people, last thing I forgot that people might have experienced are just the feelings or knowings of something. And when I say feeling, people sometimes expect an esoteric woo-woo feeling. And it's like, nope, it's a literal, you might feel it in your body. And that's the easiest sense that people have with intuition. And so people can sometimes get confused when we say, oh, your gut feeling, trust your gut, but it might not be in your gut. And the example I always use is if I meet a person or I'm presented with a situation and it's not in my highest and best, it feels like there's a string that pulls from the inside of my stomach, like someone's like pulling me on a string. If I meet someone and I'm just nervous about what they're saying because it's going to push me outside of my comfort zone, but it's in my highest and best interest, I feel tingly in the back of my neck. So and how do I know that? I just started paying attention to how I felt when I was interacting with people. And then your body has a whole language of speaking and communicating with you, and it's consistent. It will present in the same way. So just wanted to mention that.
Oh, yeah, that's good. So when you hear a word or you see an image, and it's that very quick, thing, then your brain has to interpret that. And isn't that where it can get really messy?
That's where it goes sideways because absolutely. Here's the deal. Intuition's softer voice. It's really quick. It's like it's gone. And then your brain absolutely understands it. Your brain is also got a hardwired link to our subconscious limiting beliefs. So every time we're trying to do something great, our subconscious beliefs come up and wants to self-sabotage. So your brain absolutely understands what the message is, but the other aspect of us, it'll try to like scramble the system. So your brain will say things like, that's stupid. You just saw that on TV. That's what you want to hear. And then people are like, I guess I can't believe it or I can't trust it. So absolutely right. Intuition's the very first impression. Your brain, your limiting beliefs are the second impression. Any emotions that you have, second impression. Intuition is the very, very first.
And that second impression or that voice is the inner narrator?
Mm-hmm. It can be.
But not always.
Not always. Like sometimes it's people, they trust the intuition and then you get this overwhelming, you feel the love, it touches your heart. And love can be a download from spirit too. That's something that you can receive from the divine or from wherever you want to call it. So sometimes it's not always bad, but usually for the entrepreneurs that I work with, they've been getting, so the way that I used to work as a psychic medium, people would come to me and I would give like, am I going to get married? Is my business going to be successful? Yes, you can get married is what I would say. Yes, your business is going to be successful. And then that's out the window because nothing is preordained. We can change it at any time, that I came to realize. And so what I started when I worked with entrepreneurs in intuitive coaching, I will say, I'm getting an impression of this might be really good to do. This is a next step. And they'll go, oh my God, I had that idea like 2 months ago. And it keeps coming up in my mind. Like, why didn't you do it? And it's because they have a whole bunch of reasons why it's not going to work out. And the goal of the fear is to get you to not do anything. So if you ever find yourself going, I could do this, but that's not going to work, or I could do that, that's not going to work. It's like a spiral of doom or the circle of doom where no matter what you do, you're kind of screwed. Like that's your BS. That's not your intuition.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And it's about tapping into that and then really listening to it and then taking action, because you actually do need to take action at some point.
And it's if there's something else, if there's ever an image or a feeling that you don't understand, the best thing to do is not try to think about the meaning, because if you are really present, the meaning will just come to you. You don't have to think hard about it. So if you're thinking about it, you're probably going to screw it up. The best thing you can do is ask more questions. So if you get something you don't understand, it's to go, what does that mean? What do I feel when I sense this color? What am I sensing when I look at this image? And then more information comes to you. So it's in a weird kind of way, I feel like to grow and understand your intuition, it's to stop seeking answers and start seeking the right questions to ask. Like, what does this present to me? How do I feel about that? Yada, yada.
Okay, so just to wrap up this part of the show, and then we'll move into the final segment, the superpowers for success. But just to wrap this up, basically, where you're coming from is that we all have a soul purpose, and our intuition is the language of our soul coming into our life. But yes. So there is this kind of pre-existing soul purpose. But once we tap into it, we can change things based on our actions.
Yes.
So it's not like it's just going to be that way. We actually have a lot of power over how things turn out. We just need to tap into that actual soul purpose. And
yes.
Is there only one soul purpose, or can there be, can it change?
I'm finding that, and this kind of trips people out who are psychic mediums, because a lot of people believe, no, it's like a destiny and you're destined to do this. And I kind of feel like we come to earth or come to life with an outline. It's kind of overarching. So for me, my sole purpose is just to uplift and support people. That's it. I could do that by having a family. I could do that in the work that I do. I could do it in a billion different ways. The soul actually, I believe, does not care how we express our soul's purpose. So our human gets to be involved and say, hey, I don't like it this way. I want to get paid for what I do. I don't want to do it for free. And our soul's like, fine, I don't care, but this is what I want to experience. So yeah, I feel like there could be lots of different things that you can do for the soul purpose.
Oh, it's so fascinating, isn't it? And there are so many different voices and parts of ourselves that it's like,
right.
Who are we talking about here? So, Candice, this was very interesting and useful. And I want to move into the segment called Superpowers for Success and ask you a few questions to wrap up the show.
Okay.
So the first question is, what does success in life mean for you?
For me, it just means trying my best in the moment. That's success. Like I really going in pursuit of what I really want to do and my truth and just trying my best. It's not about getting there. It really is, because getting there, the there changes constantly with me. So it's, did I do my very best right now? Am I doing my best right now? And if so, then that's success to me, because it can be really hard and challenging for me at times. And so that's how I have to look at success for myself.
Well, yeah, doing our best is really hard, because most of the time it's just a lot easier to not really do our best.
Yeah.
Right. And actually, it ends up not being easier. It ends up being harder to not do our best.
Right.
But in the moment, we think, oh, let me just do this, but actually to really do our best, it takes work.
It does take work, but the hardest part is ignoring all the voices that aren't your intuition. If we could just have a clear mind and none of that other stuff, it would be so easy. But we have this judgment constantly about what does it even mean to be our best. So that's why success is, nope, I'm clear about this is, even if I felt like I took a misstep, it was like, well, at the time, that's where I was and I can accept that. And so it's really being in that success vibration or that sense, is trying to stay there as often as possible. Like, I am successful. Cool. And then that just starts attracting more successful experiences and moments, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And do you think that the world would be more at peace and more loving if more people were tapped into their intuition or their soul purpose? Absolutely.
Because that missing piece would be gone. That piece of, why am I even here? That piece of defeat, like nothing, it doesn't matter. Only special people get to do what they want. And it's not me.
All the fear too. I mean, I feel like everybody's running around with all this fear and making these horrible decisions that are impacting us, globally. And a lot of it comes down to fear.
It does. That's profound. It is, because what do you do when you're afraid? Then you impose all these rules because you constantly think something bad is going to happen to you. And then we come up with rules for why bad things happen to us, which are crazy, and are blaming someone, even ourselves, as opposed to recognizing, oh, well, what if I accepted responsibility for my happiness and my truth? And that would be good enough. And that's the miracle that happens with my clients, is it takes so much energy to keep up the fear mode, to follow other people's rules, to be hard on yourself. It takes so much energy, where intuition is the exact opposite. You just get to be. And without apology, you just get to be, and that is good enough.
Okay, so we're running out of time because we're having such a good conversation here, but I just want to get a few more questions in.
Yes.
When did you know you were really good at what you do?
When clients started to get really great tangible results. Like,
can you take us back even further to when you were working in the federal government and you were like, whoa, hold on a second.
I just thought I was a genius at the time. Like, I literally thought I'm just super smart. And then I'm like, no. Well, in my federal career, I was very young, and it's like 27, maybe 28 or 29, but I was promoted to a GS-13, which is a high grade. It was kind of uncalled for, or not uncalled for, unheard of at the time. So I was always doing stuff like that. Like, I had this knack for helping people. I was always getting recognized and getting great opportunities. And so I did think I was a badass when I was doing all that stuff, because I didn't know it was because I was following my intuition without knowing that that's what it was that I was doing. I just thought I was brilliant and could sometimes do weird things. And then with intention, though, is the work that I did with my clients, and seeing, oh, now not just I can do this for myself, but I can help them like go next level in their business, and go from nearly shutting down their business to then being featured in Vogue magazine or Marie Claire, and like expanding their business across states. When they started getting real deal, tangible results, I'm like, oh, great. Like that's when I super felt like, yeah, I know what I'm doing.
I love that. Okay. And what advice, I don't know how old you are, but you're referring to this 27-year-old self as if it was a long time ago. So I'm going to ask you, what advice would you give your early 20-year-old self?
Don't take it personal and don't take it serious. That's what I would say. Because I know myself will eventually get there, but it would have been a lot easier if I didn't take things personal and didn't take things seriously. That's what I would say.
But do you feel like you needed to do that to get to where you are now?
I feel like everything I did was right on, and I hated, like, I didn't like working for the federal government. And for a while, I felt like I betrayed my soul. But now I understand I needed that experience because it taught me how to communicate. I was horrible at explaining and talking before I went into the federal government. I had to supervise employees. So I learned how to help people navigate challenges. I understood they had real world issues in their personal life. And so it then helped me understand how to help people navigate challenges in the work I do now. So I did have to go through that stuff. And that's why I would say, hey, like, suck it up. Don't take it personal. It's not that serious. Going to be great.
Yeah. It's really not. It's all going to be okay.
Yeah.
Candice, do you identify as a feminist?
I do. Yes.
What does that
Very
mean?
much so.
What does that mean to you?
Basically, giving women, empowering women to be as equal as men or all the other genders that are out now. Like there's just equality. And giving women the freedom to express themselves however they want without fear or retaliation or judgment, retribution. Like women can be any type of feminist that they want to be, and that's okay. It's really just honoring what a woman wants to do and supporting her 1,000% is how I view feminism. And then I feel like a large part of it now is showing up for each other in support instead of trying to tear each other down and say, you're not a feminist because.
Yeah. Okay. And last question, what are you reading right now? What's on your nightstand?
It's an audiobook, but I'm listening to The Misadventures of an Awkward Black Girl by Issa Rae, who has a show on HBO. I forgot what the show is called. I think it's called Awkward, but she's hilarious. And that's a really entertaining book. And it talks about her journey of how she got a show on HBO just by following her truth.
Oh, cool. Oh my gosh. It's been such a pleasure having you on the show today, Candice. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I really had fun.
All right. And for everybody who's listening, you can go to wellwomanlife.com/podcast to find the show notes and all of the links to things that we talked about today, and also the download of the intuition versus imagination handout that Candice is providing us. So thank you so much for being on the show, Candice.
Thank you for having me.
That's it for our show today. Remember, if you need support to live your Well Woman life, head over to wellwomanlife.com/Facebook to join us. Our monthly live event, Well Woman Drinks, brings women together to share our successes and challenges as women, leaders, moms, aunts, sisters, and all the other roles we carry. If you'd like to attend a Well Woman Drinks near you, or if there isn't one in your city yet and you'd like to start one, email info@wellwomanlife.com. If you enjoyed the show, please take a moment and subscribe in iTunes and leave a review. This helps raise visibility, which is super helpful when it comes to producing the show every week. For feedback, comments, or just to let me know you were listening today, find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram @WellWomanLife. I'm Giovanna Rossi for The Well Woman Show. Until next time, have a super powerful week.